I got to say, as we're coming up, Chancellor Morton deserves that intro. I don't. I'm just a farm kid from Iowa, so you listen to that, it's a little embarrassing, but
you don't want to know where I'm from. Well, how do we want to do this?
Yeah, how do we want to do this? I'm sure we were told what we're supposed to do. What are we supposed to do at this point?
Just do it.
Just give a presentation on what we do, and go ahead, Chancellor. Do you want to start?
Well, what I'll do is I'm Leo, by the way, with University of Missouri Kansas City. What I'll do, I'll start by sort of describing the university, because we were supposed to talk about the intersection between education and entrepreneurism and the like. And so let me explain the university. First of all, University of Missouri Kansas City was formed in like 1933, so it's not a very old university as universities go. I think Harvard is 378 years old by comparison. But this was formed in 1933 during the heart of the Depression, and the people in this city said, you know, even though this is during the Depression, we're going to invest here because you can't have a great city without a great university. So it was formed as the University of Kansas City, a private school. And in 1963, it became a part of the University of Missouri system. And when that system was formed, so for the last 50 years, it's been known as the University of Missouri Kansas City. Now, this is a school, it's about a tenth the size of that mammoth that was described earlier. We have only about 16,000 students, right? And it's across 11 schools. It's pretty comprehensive, however. We have 4 professional schools. We have medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and law as professional schools, which is a large number for most universities. And we also have 11 schools in total. Now, we have 2 campuses. We have the lovely Voca campus right next door here, and we have a campus we call Hospital Hill. On Hospital Hill, we have medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and medicine, dentistry, pharmacy, and nursing together. And they're connected to 2 great hospitals, Children's Mercy and Truman Medical Centers. And on our Voca campus here, we have 7 other schools. We have the College of Arts and Sciences, of course, our largest. We have our Conservatory of Music and Dance, which, by the way, is also another Big 5 initiative for this region. We have our law school on this campus. We have the School of Biological Sciences. We have a School of Education. Now, in our School of Education, we specialize in developing teachers to teach in urban environments. Now, most folks, if you get a degree in education, you will do student teaching in your senior year. These folks start in their freshman year, and they make a commitment to go back into urban environments to teach. They get instructed by professionals from all over the world who understand the detailed issues associated with teaching in that environment. So we specialize in that. I've mentioned probably the School of Biological Sciences. One I will get to here, School of Computing and Engineering, huge in this town. We have, I think, 4th largest engineering company revenues occur in this region. And given our size, we probably have more engineers per capita. I think that's the reason I feel good here. And our School of Engineering is not that old. It's only about 12 years old. It was a department of engineering in the College of Arts and Sciences. And it is now, starting at 12 years ago at about 600 students, is now over 1,800. Growing at about, and this year we expect it will grow about 30%, but that's to service this region. So the last school I mentioned, which will get us into the entrepreneur issue, is the Block School of Management. It's probably the 2nd largest school on the campus, and it is understandably a business school that is focused on entrepreneurism. Why wouldn't you, in a town that has the entrepreneurial history that this town has, with a neighbor called the Kauffman Foundation that is a partner and support. So we, by choice, focused on entrepreneurism as a niche for the School of Management. But it's not just for the School of Management. We believe, and I'm not talking too much now.
No, you're perfect.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No,
well,
please.
We believe that it's important for all of our students to get exposure to entrepreneurism. We also happen to be, and I'll explain, we also happen to be the school for the visual and performing arts. So if you ask me what that means, it would mean to me that every student graduating, no matter what the discipline, would have an uncommon appreciation for the arts. Well, we also are the campus for entrepreneurism. So all of our students, in addition to having, no matter the discipline, would also have an uncommon appreciation for the value of being an entrepreneur. And why wouldn't you? Because we believe in slathering, that's a technical term, the university, all of the schools with entrepreneurism. Our Dean of the College of Arts of the Conservatory of Music and Dance wants his students taking entrepreneur. You know, he wants all of his artists to be in a position where they know how to make money with their talents. Every doctor, every dentist, every pharmacist, they will all have offices. Same is true for our engineers. Dr. Min Kao, who is the CEO of Garmin, has said, Leo, I can hire engineers from any place in the world. He said, but I need engineers who've been exposed to the block school who understand entrepreneurism, because I need them to be more innovative. Now, most people, when they hear the term entrepreneur, thinks, oh, this is somebody who's going to start a business. To us, it means they're innovative. How would you like to have employees who really understand the value to the business of the work that they do, who sitting around the lunch table might hear an idea and understand its value to the business and actually move on that? That's the kind of employee we're trying to develop for them. I'll stop there.
No, you know, your dean of law school actually got a hold of me yesterday to come speak to the entrepreneurial initiative going on within law school. So that's definitely true, that it's pervasive throughout the university there. Yes. And unbelievable. My name is Matt Condon. I guess my story and my place here certainly comes from a different path. I'm not a Kansas City guy. I went to grad school and I went to law school. It brought me here to finish my law school on a law school scholarship. I never really intended to be an attorney. I just liked law school and I had a scholarship for it, so I decided to do that after grad school. Passed the bar, but always intended to get in and start a business, and had consulted with a company during my MBA that got me really passionate about healthcare and healthcare law. Didn't plan to stay in Kansas City. Had no intention to. Came here to finish law school, just married. And this place became my home because it really embraced what I was trying to accomplish collectively. And part of it was the university, part of it was the community, part of it was kind of what's, I guess, generally considered this Midwest kind, you can talk to anybody. I was looking at your guys' agenda as you move forward. There's a couple of guys, Terry Bassam and Greg Graves, run enormous companies here, KCP&L and Burns & Mac. When I first started and had 2 employees, I could call them and they'd say, hey, what's going on? How can I help? They're 2 of my favorite people in the world. And so as you meet with them coming up, I think that's a really important piece. Leo, I could call if I needed to and ask him questions personally or professionally, which is a really important piece, and we'll talk a little bit about that. How you build an entrepreneurial ecosystem, that's one of the fundamental pieces you must have. It's one of the pieces that, I'll get to that. It's one of the pieces that when we look to the great cities right now, and you're talking about Boston, Austin, and Menlo, or San Francisco, right? That's there. I travel there a lot now. You can walk down the street and talk to people that are billionaires as if they were people that aren't billionaires, right?
Most of
which
us.
is really, it's really important. Started the company, it grew really fast, happened to be at the right place at the right time. I think when we talk about, and I guess part of you're here to learn about the Kansas City experience, I think that was really important. I was a small company when I started with 2 employees, but we were looking for big companies to be our clients. And so the ability to go and make that value proposition to a CFO or CEO who'd sit and have a cup of coffee with you was so important. I got some of those big companies to be my client. The company grew. We grew to 130, 140 employees. The interesting thing about that, Chancellor Morton and I were at an event yesterday celebrating his university was able to pull a $14.2 million innovation center or free enterprise center that will support this community. And I was thinking about the impact of entrepreneurialism on this community. I believe that my 2 startups that represent most of the employees that I represent in the marketplace right now, I believe we have brought 78 people from outside of Kansas City into this region to work, which in and of itself, I mean, it doesn't compare to what Greg's done at Burns & Mac or Terry's done at KCP&L, but if you look at lots of startups bringing 78 people, mostly young people, from Chicago, from Denver, from Austin, into this community to make money, to have families, and to support this economy. In the aggregate, that becomes a really powerful story, and I think that's part of the reason why this community has been so embracing of organizations like mine moving forward. We've had a great run here lately, most of which I have just got to experience as a citizen, not in any leadership role. But you look at, I just wrote these down before we came in, our chamber putting kind of a flag in the sand and saying we are going to be one of the most entrepreneurial city in the nation was a really important piece. It coalesced everyone around a vision that was really important. It communicated to the startup community that, hey, we were really going to try to do something which was meaningful. Google Fiber was big for our community. It created an engine called Startup Village, which you guys, I don't know if you're going to make it out there or not. Sometime if you come back to Kansas City, you should go to Startup Village. It's a bunch of houses that house a bunch of computer programmers. Nobody's doing anything before noon, but from noon to 3 a.m. you'll see kids all the time walking around and having coffee, and programmers colliding with each other, which is really important. We've had great civic support. KCADC has supported KC Rising. Cliff Illig, one of our iconic entrepreneurs here in town that started Cerner, has got behind Enterprise Kansas City. We've had local and angel groups, which are really important to the startups. Mid-America Angels, Flyover Capital. Funding's a huge piece. I'll tell you that right now. If you really want to support your entrepreneurial community, having funding mechanisms is incredibly important, because I promise you, Boston, San Francisco, Austin will want to bring, if they love an idea, they're going to want to bring them there. It's just the reality. We've had corporate support, Sprint, put together an incubator here, an accelerator that's been really important to our community. KC SourceLink, house out of UMKC, is so important. Maria Myers, I don't know if you'll get to meet her, has done so much for our startup community and understanding the national ecosystem. Again, the Free Enterprise Center that we celebrated yesterday is another message to our community that we're serious about it, which is really meaningful. The Kauffman Foundation is huge for us, no question about it. And Mr. Kauffman, being an iconic entrepreneurial figure, not just in this city, in this region, but in this country, of somebody that built a business from his house and turned it into an engine that decades later still supports this community in really meaningful ways, is awesome. It's an awesome piece. And so now I am taking over the reins from Peter De Silva as in the civic leadership role as champion of the Big Five. Peter is the president of UME Bank and Unbelievable. And we're trying to be a little bit irreverent as we support this initiative. It's got to be, I don't know if any of you read about entrepreneurial communities, but Brad Feld writes a great book, Startup Communities, and it has 4 key principles that we're following. And one, it has to be entrepreneur-led. We are a strange bunch of people, entrepreneurs are, by our DNA. And so if you're going to have an initiative within your city to support them, you're going to want to bring in entrepreneurs. The other thing I would say is it's been a mechanism of which we, through our chamber, have started to bring up the talent and civic leadership of tomorrow. We've got some incredibly bright minds here in Kansas City that have been in their offices or in their foxholes pounding out code for the last 5 years and have companies that are about to erupt on the national stage. We want to keep them here, and we want to get them involved civically in our leadership community. The second piece that just my advice before I turn it over, and I'd love to have questions, you've got to take a long-term approach. We are impatient by nature, all of us, and especially entrepreneurs. I want Kansas City to be Boston, next week. It's not going to be. It's going to take 20 years. And really, if you look at those cities that have built ecosystems around entrepreneurs, it's been decades that they've been building it. Menlo Park didn't happen yesterday. It happened, Steve Jobs and Wozniak started those kind of initiatives decades ago. So you've got to be patient, but you've got to be aggressive at the same time. It's got to be terribly inclusive, which is point 3. That's the beauty of the entrepreneurial community, is you can't tell who's making money and who isn't, which is awesome. Everybody talks to everybody, and everybody kind of looks the same. This is kind of our outfit, right? Jeans and a sport jacket and maybe tennis shoes. And everybody talks to everybody. And that is a really important thing to really make an entrepreneurial system. My COO of the organization I've just spun out and started up, and we have 30 employees now, is a board member from another startup of a friend of mine. He's going to be tremendously successful, but I stole that guy over, and he's one of my best friends, and it's fine. He's probably going to steal some of my people too, and that's fine, because that's the way it is. We're all good with that. We want people to have opportunities to grow. And the other thing that I would always tell everybody is the last and most important piece that Brad Feld writes about is don't try to over-organize it. We are entrepreneurs because we don't like getting in line, we don't like following directions, and we don't like rules. So don't make a bunch of rules for us that we have to follow. You have to stack activities that are by nature messy and organic and disorganized, and be comfortable with it. Buy pizza, serve beer, we'll show up, we'll talk, we'll visit, we'll bounce ideas off of each other, and it's awesome. And that in and of itself is sometimes enough. Startup Village over there, they've had all these great, really startup communities, companies that have started. Some of them hit it, and they're going to be incredibly rich. Some didn't make it. That's okay. We celebrate that too, the fact that people tried. But I'll tell you what, you want to see what's going on in that community, go show up at the coffee shop. That's where people are hanging out all the time. And that's where we're taking programmers from each other and helping each other out and figuring out as it goes along. And that's an incredible, important piece. The 5 piece I keep saying I'm going to end. The 6 focus areas that we're focusing on at the Kansas City Chamber is access to entrepreneurs, so making sure we keep the open door. Workforce and talent development. I don't have enough programmers. I'll tell you that right now. I can't bring them in fast enough. I need Leo to start producing more because I need more startups. The other thing is I need critical mass. When I'm hiring right now, I have 8 programmers that I'm paying great wages to that don't live in Kansas City. Not because they don't love Kansas City, but they're worried that if my startup doesn't work, there's not another startup opportunity for them to jump to. So you need critical mass. And we're almost there. We're close. And once that happens, I really think it's a huge moment for this community, because once we get critical mass and I can bring my programmers in, and if it doesn't work out, I'll go get them a job by noon tomorrow at another startup. That's a game changer for us, and we're close. Marketing, we need to tell the world about our successes better. Funding, we need to get capital here. I'm raising capital right now. A lot of it's going to come from coastal money, but some of it's going to come from Midwest money, which is very important. It used to be 5 years ago, nothing come from here. And now probably half of my fund will come from here. Public policy, we need a piece, and then the last piece as it relates to what we're talking about today is education. You could look at the great entrepreneurial ecosystems. It's Menlo Park and Stanford. I was just out in Boston this weekend, and it's Harvard and MIT. Austin, it's UT. There is a tangible bridge between the great universities there and the entrepreneurial community. I have, my director of operations was MBA grad from UMKC. He was going to take probably $250,000 to go work in New York City. I promised him all the beer and pizza he could take and a $60,000 salary and a piece of the pie, and he took a job with me. And he's unbelievable. I have now 4 interns from UMKC. I don't know when they show up for work or when they leave. They're there all the time. They work incredibly hard. I don't know what I'm paying them, probably not very much, but I'll do anything for them. I'll either get them a job in one of my organizations if they move forward, or I will call Toby or Mike or any of the other entrepreneurs I know and say, hey, I got a kid that's a stud. And these kids are all studs. And I need them because I don't always have the money to pay for the stuff I'm trying to get done, and these college kids that'll come in and be a part of that ecosystem are so important. I have 2 research projects going on, one at UMKC and one at KU. The universities have accepted some of my proof of concept patents, and we're testing them at their schools. That's so important for me. That integration between education and entrepreneurialism it's vital. And I will say, 10 years ago we didn't have it figured out. It's still messy now. We're figuring it out here, and we have momentum. And I could have moved my companies to Boston and San Francisco, and they're staying right here in Kansas City, and they're not moving. And maybe I'll do another one after this one that I'm working on now. It'll be here in Kansas City. Because it's a great community. So I talked longer than you.
Oh, well. So how does an organization and how does a university, with all of its structure and rules, deal with these unruly, unorganized entrepreneurs? And how does that integration happen? Well, first of all, you don't try to change them, all right? But think about, when there will always be this debate about whether entrepreneurs have to have the DNA, be born with it, or whether you can actually educate people to be good entrepreneurs, all right? We're not going to take that debate anywhere, but most of the people who talk about that are talking about folks who do startups. But as we said, entrepreneurs are innovators, and they don't necessarily have to start a business. They have to understand the value of entrepreneurial thinking as they do whatever business they're a part of. Now, universities have to be somewhat comprehensive in their approach to supporting the entrepreneurial ecosystem. For example, there are people who actually teach this subject. So who educates them? Who provides the programming that provides a PhD in entrepreneurship? Well, we do that. You also have to advance knowledge about entrepreneurship, and along with Kauffman Foundation, there's great research. We do research on that subject as well. So you advance knowledge, you educate folks who go out and teach it. You also provide an environment where students who have never even thought about it can get that little buzz turned on. And that's the other thing that we do. And as I said, we kind of slather that across the entire university. Plus, you have to provide entrepreneurs the chance to connect with the students, because some of them have great ideas. And we just finished what we call the Rainier Venture Challenge. I don't know, were you there for that?
I was in Boston. I was supposed to judge, and I couldn't be there.
Well, we have 150 business people who are mentors to our students who start ventures. And one of the venture winners a few years ago was a guy who came up with this thing called Shooter Brew. Anybody heard of Shooter Brew? Well, if you watched Jay Leno one night, he had actually demonstrated it. You see, if you were at a party and you want a beer and the ice chest is over there and you don't feel like getting up to get it, you push this button and it shoots a brew to you. No kidding. And it doesn't fizz on you. So it was on this guy who was a Garmin student, employee who was in school of entrepreneurship here, came up with this. He won the venture challenge. You can imagine everybody's going to have a shooter brew, and along with the insurance that goes with it in case you bean somebody. But Jay Leno was advertising it, was pushing it one night, and he said, well, I won't go through it all, but he actually had a toilet on his stage, and he set it over there, and he was shooting himself brews from the. Anyway.
There's a large beer influence on our entrepreneurial community.
Oh, yes. You have to be connected the right way. But you see, once you get the students engaged and they start getting exposed to this, then some of them will actually get out there and start businesses. And when they do, they may not have all of the resources they need to be successful. What we're about on the whole issue of entrepreneurism is improving outcomes. You've all heard about the number of businesses that fail for one reason or another, or just don't get started well. Well, there's knowledge that goes into that startup, and then there's knowledge about how to run it once you get it started. And then there's a support that can be provided through KC SourceLink. Will you be hearing from Maria Myers? No. Well, SourceLink was started by both the Kauffman Foundation and the university. And imagine this. What the SourceLink model says is that in this region, for example, this is a fact, there's over 200 organizations that support small businesses, right? But if you're a business owner with a problem, how do you know who to call? With SourceLink, you have one number to call, you tell them what your problem is, and they get you connected with a qualified source. Well, that's been modeled, and there's a US SourceLink now, there's an Alaska SourceLink, there's a Dallas SourceLink. They've been selling this all over the country. Even the Saudis want it, all right? But once you get businesses started, that's another way. We have another project called Whiteboard to Boardroom that's in the Innovation Center under Maria Myers. And out of that has come a business called iVerify that you might hear about. You have these folks in the lab who come up with these great technologies. We have a faculty member in the School of Computing and Engineering who has this biometric patent. It just demonstrates that the vascular structure in the white of your eyes is as unique to you as your fingerprint. Now, we got Reza together with a guy named Toby Rush, and who was a serial entrepreneur who knows how to make businesses happen. And now they have a business called iVerify, and they've raised quite a bit of money. Because they use it now to, it's your password for your iPhone to start up your telephone. It can detect you from 30 feet away, so it can be used as security measures. It can be your password at the ATM, and so it's big business. But that would have still been sitting in the lab had Maria, with her Whiteboard to Boardroom project, had not brought these two together. So universities need to play that role. It's about taking innovation out of the laboratory, getting it out into useful products and services, and through the kind of support that we can provide through the community. It's about starting this project. We just announced as Matt just told you, we were at this ceremony yesterday, we raised $7.4 million private and another $7.4 million matched by the state to build this free enterprise center that will be like a high-tech rapid prototyping center. And it'll be a place where our students in the STEM Alliance and ACTUS, which used to be called Students of Free Enterprise, come together. Our School of Computing and Engineering, the Block School, all come together with entrepreneurs to make good things happen. So it's to be the hub of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Kansas City. So great things coming, but those are the kinds of ways that universities can be involved in the process.
Yeah, it's funny as you're telling that story. My COO is from Toby's company, so
good.
Yeah, it's great talking about Toby's company. And this, the one thing too, from my perspective, and specifically as we talk about educational piece, having universities that articulate not just with their words but with their actions, opening up a $14 million center dedicated to us. That's not talk, that's walk, and those messages are felt in the community. I took calls last night from entrepreneurs that have 2 employees and a hope wing and a prayer, talking about how excited they were about what UMKC is doing. That's a really cool thing in our community when we start looking at it. And that translates over throughout the ecosystem, which I'm sure you guys could do too. Our iconic, I refer to them iconic, we have got some unbelievable entrepreneurs from this community. Again, Cliff Illig, Terry Dunn. Terry Dunn, what's that?
Henry Block.
Henry Block, who's unbelievable, who gave back to the community and what they were doing as they went through professional. But Terry Dunn was at the announcement in the audience yesterday for UMKC, which is really cool. And we're at this really unique spot, I think, where we have a lot of startups happening in this community right now. Some of them are going to be really successful, some of them aren't, and that's okay. But then we have this iconic entrepreneurial community that made a lot of money that care and are going back down to our startup community saying, how can we help and how can we get involved? How can we help UMKC open up a free enterprise center? How can we help improve the funding so you don't have to fly to the coasts to do a fundraise here? And we don't have it figured out for sure. We got a lot of smart people who care right now, and that's a great place to start with. And if we just got to keep that going and keep successes like what the Chancellor's been able to do at UMKC recently and keep it going, because momentum is what we've got, and momentum is what we got to keep going right now.
In fact, in this very room, you mentioned this giving spirit. Yeah. In this very room on Monday, we will have a couple of days on social entrepreneurship, because one of our most famous benefactors, Henry Block, who's 93 years old and still driving himself, yeah. Gave us $32 million for a building to support this whole approach to entrepreneurism. And he is a social entrepreneur. Yeah. That's what makes this city fairly unique. We have these entrepreneurs who built their businesses here. Almost all of them have started foundations like this one, and Jim Stowers, who started American Century, took some of his pocket change and a couple of billion and started the Stowers Institute next door and the like. But they give to this to make this place a better place. They feel this tremendous social responsibility that I think we're all benefiting from.
Said earlier, we talked about just sometimes celebrating things are really important. You shouldn't be ashamed of celebrating things. I've got a quote on my desk from Henry Block. I'm going to mess up saying it, but it's something to the effect of, I never wanted to be a successful business person or a civic leader. I wanted to be both, because this community needed me to be both. And at this year's annual dinner for our chamber, we had some speakers come up that we brought from out of town, and then we had Henry Block come up with his cane, and he stood up there and gave a speech that should have got a standing ovation. And so those are the things that, for our entrepreneurial community, to see a man like Henry Block, to stand up there and talk about what he did, is important. We need to celebrate that. And you have those people. You need to celebrate them and get your young entrepreneurs seeing someone like Henry Block that wasn't satisfied just making a lot of money, knew he had to give back to our community. Those are the examples I think all of us in our communities need to celebrate and make happen, because you've got them, we've got them, we've all got them. We just have to celebrate them and be okay celebrating them sometime. That's it for me. I think we've got some questions, maybe?
Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Oh, yeah.
And for the next 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to provide a Q&A period for questions and hopefully answers.
Hopefully.
But before I do, I need to make a note to self. Apply for a franchise, shoot a brew. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I need I want exclusive university rights on that.
Shoot a brew.
To help us with our Q&A session, Dr. Eli Capilouto is here. He's graciously agreed to facilitate this part of our program. Dr. Capilouto is the 12th university president for the University of Kentucky. He comes from Birmingham, which is one of the stops on the way of one of our speakers. He has supported Commerce Lexington not only financially, but through the support of human resources, and some of his folks are on the trip this time. So without further ado, Dr. Capilouto, please come up, and we'll get to it.
Hey, I
I learned early this morning I'm supposed to meet in the middle.
Okay.
And I have to say, when you meet somebody that you feel like you've known a long time, there's a reason.
Right.
See, he graduated from Ullman High School. Anybody know about Ullman High School? Ullman High School was on the campus of, it was one of the first black high schools in Birmingham, Alabama. Right. It was named for Samuel Ullman, who was a lay rabbi at the congregation where I was a member. In 1900, got put on the first school board in Birmingham, and the first thing he did with Alma Powell, Colin Powell's wife's father, was to create the first black high school in the South. And what matters most about that history, it's no longer a high school, it's a building on a university campus. The tradition of learning, starting at a young age, is exemplified in this man. And I've seen so many alumni of that high school echo through the generation. So
Thank you. Thank you.
And Matt, see, I'm more in your generation. But Matt reminds me, there is no one path of education, entrepreneurism, and competency in. What I'm interested about, and I'll start off the questions, and talk about this ecosystem. Also talked about the threat of being the incubator for Boston. Because of the talent, the capital, everything that's available there, we've had those same experiences.
Sure.
In our, talked about a 20-year time. What are you folks doing to sustain not disrupted by such big?
I think, and I'll start and I'll turn it over to Leo. I think too, it's okay. I mean, you know what? If somebody, if you have a startup in Lexington and Boston comes in and puts $20 million into them and move them for Boston, I don't think it's wrong to celebrate that too. And I think sometimes people have lost in communities by saying, oh, that's a loss. That company might come back and start in Lexington again and then reinvest their funds in. I mean, it's such a transient entrepreneurial community throughout the country. I can fly anywhere. I think what we have done aggressively, and we're getting a real strong presence in it now, and I'm able to recognize this as the entrepreneur who's sometimes asking for money from the big VC funds. If you have, the VC funds want to move you to the coast, basically, because that's where their attorneys, their accountants, and their advisory staffs are. So it's easier. They don't want to get on a plane to come to Lexington, or Kansas City for that matter. But if you have an ecosystem that supports that entrepreneur with advisors, with attorneys, with accountants, that's easy too. And you just have to celebrate, you have to create it and celebrate it. And that's where the interaction with the universities, with our law firms, we can create an environment. Sometimes then they go from being a lead investor to just a syndicated investor. And if you get, in this town, if you're going to do a construction fund and you're raising $10 million, if you can get Terry Dunn, put $1 million in and be the lead, there's a lot of VCs that'll follow Terry Dunn and think that guy knows construction and I'm going to follow him. If you're healthcare technology, you can get Cliff Illig to put $1 million in. A lot of VC funds will say, keep them in Kansas City. They've got great support there. We're going to let them stay there and grow. And so it's kind of a two-part answer. Sometimes it's okay if companies move away if they had a great experience in Lexington because they're likely to come back. And secondarily, that's more the tolerating. The aggressive part is to build the resources around your entrepreneurs that give them the story to tell the VCs that they can stay in Lexington. And they should stay in Lexington. And they need to be able to answer when Andreessen Horowitz says, I want to move you to Menlo Park. They need to be able to answer, this is why I should stay in Lexington. And these are the resources I have in place here. And you've got to equip your entrepreneurs with that story. They're not going to come up with it on their own. But you've got to be able to tell that story aggressively, efficiently, and effectively, for sure.
And of course, I would agree with Matt. I think what you have to do is leverage the assets you have. And one asset that we have is one that Matt mentioned earlier. I moved here 26 years ago with AT&T to run a factory. It's been home ever since. It's one of the friendliest places I have ever been in my life, and I've lived a lot of different places. And I would just say one of the things we have going for us is a very livable community with access to some of the greatest people you can find, and they're willing to give you the time and their energy. Yeah, we're going to lose some, because some of the investors will insist that they move to where they are. But I think most of those folks, the enlightened ones, will say, I want you to be wherever you can be the most successful. And if you can get access to the right resources in Kansas City, I think that's the best way to keep them. And we have a very livable community. We have, and we're developing the ecosystem that I think will position us to be successful with them. But if we lose them, we lose them. We have a state line here. And in fact, I live in Kansas, but I've always worked in Missouri. So I do 2 border crossings a day. And I can tell you that people on the Missouri side are very sensitive about that line on occasion. I verify when it started, this business we were talking about, moved into this first office was 100 feet on the other side of the state line. And people got very upset. Now he's moved back onto the Missouri side, and he's much larger. But so you have to deal with those things. But it's the reality in this world.
Let me open it up for questions.
Dr. Capilouto, you need to get up closer to mine.
Oh.
Thank you. Open it up for questions.
I got a question. So at what age do you get to that young potential entrepreneur? Is there a certain age, or are there activities that you connect with through school? Do you have entrepreneurial clubs? How do you connect at a really young age with?
All of the above. We have a program that's supported by the Kauffman Foundation at the university. It's called KC STEM Alliance. It touches about 13,000 students, and it's all about getting them interested in STEM fields. But it's also getting them connected to programs like FIRST Robotics and the like, all of those kinds of, and Project Lead the Way. And all of those kinds of activities start stimulating those juices. And we just opened another center over here called KC Easy, which is where high school students can come in and start working on robotics and the like as well. Those students are going through this center that we're talking about with our Enactus group. We have one of the largest ones around. Those students who are our students on the campus will be working with students in STEM Alliance and KC Easy and the like, exposing them to this whole entrepreneurial situation that they'll be able to see products being developed. Something's got to turn that light on, and the earlier the better. I've been thinking prenatal, but I've given up on that.
I would say too, that's where the events, I hate events for events' sake, but are important. The Rainier Institute a couple of months ago celebrated Tom McDonald, who started Boulevard Brew here and became a great company and sold. And so they were inducting him into the Entrepreneurial Hall of Fame, and I was there to induct him because he's just a great guy. And so it was an honor to get to induct him. But then afterwards, I looked around the room. It's a beautiful hall. There's probably, 300 or 400 kids there, mostly college, some high school. Just came in to listen, to hear about it, and then sat around and asked questions. And it was fascinating. You know, that part of it was fascinating. And I don't know if anybody left there that didn't want to be an entrepreneur and decided they wanted to be an entrepreneur, but maybe. And they were really interested and dialed in, and that was neat.
I was interested in your discussion on the philanthropic and civic role models that you spoke of and how influential that's been in like the progression. But I think you mentioned that there's a real effort to take these young business leaders and turning them to civic leaders. Yeah. And I just wanted you to elaborate a little more on what that looks like, that effort.
Our kids, I think. I mean, I think that's what gets us involved. The entrepreneurs, most of us I have 4 kids, a 10, 8, 7, 10, 8, 4, and 3-year-old. And so I don't look at this community as how it will maybe support me or not, but I look at it as how it will support my 3 daughters and my son, and what universities they will have and what opportunities they will have in this community to stay in. I look at things like the Women Who Mean Business, because I think my 3 daughters all could be president of the United States already. I believe that. And I want a community that will support them as they grew up and making them think they can be president of the United States too if they so choose. And so I think, you know, entrepreneurs, we tend to get in the foxhole and do that thing we get hyper-focused. But when we start to have kids and having an educational system that supports our kids so that we can stay here, it's the cycle that keeps coming around. I think, at least my perspective on most of the entrepreneurs that we're talking about now, maybe we weren't so tied into 10 years ago, the next 10 years of this community until now we're starting to look at our kids knowing they're going to be here, and now it's got us dialed in. And great leaders like Leo have said, hey, you know, do good at your job, but care about your kids. And so now you've got this bubbling entrepreneurial community that is getting involved and saying, I'm going to carve out a piece of my time for this community because this community will influence how my kids grow up. And I think, I don't know how that happened for sure, but it definitely happened. I think it was the leadership that we saw from the entrepreneurs before us got out in front of us and started telling us that all the time. You can't just sit in your office and think Kansas City is going to be a great city. It won't. Our great entrepreneurs are going to pass away. And somebody needs to fill that void.
I think you can just never forget the value of role models. And in the block school where you go to a number of business schools and folks are learning how to get out there and make it for themselves, we tell the story of Henry Block, and who is a very giving person. And you have to keep planting that seed, because where else are they going to get it from? You might think that a lot of the things that you do are things that you just knew how to do. I tell people the only thing I can take credit for is the fact that I picked the right parents, right? Because it was through them that I've learned just about everything. And there are things that just come natural to me now because I saw them giving. So if you don't get it at home, then somehow you've got to be exposed to it and to the value of it. And so that's a part of what we do. There's a significant community service component to everything that we do. I'm sure you do the same. And so we try to make sure that they are involved in the community and they know what it feels like to give back, that feeling that you get from having done that. So it's the only shot you have at it, I think.
Lexington's entrepreneurial community has grown quite a bit over the last 7 to 10 years. One of the things that I think we still struggle with is having an event or a venue where the investor side and the entrepreneurs can get together more regularly, and even mentors for that matter. And was just wondering if you have any pointers to help us out with that.
Messy. I mean, it's messy for us too. We have dealmaker dinners now. We have them here at Kauffman. We bring in entrepreneurs and investors. Investors, you know, our issue, which probably, I don't know, Lexington Wells is similar. We have capital here, it's not organized. And, you know, entrepreneurs are trying to get moving. And so I can go out to I can go walk down Sand Hill Road and hit VC, have 7 meetings in the morning and get an answer 4 up and 3 down by lunch. Here, we're still organizing who do we go to, so it takes time to get better at it. You got to just put them in a room. Our investment groups will say, we invest in deals, we don't see enough good ones. All of our entrepreneurs think they're billion-dollar ideas. I promise you, they all do. They're not. And a lot of them aren't organized enough to have a five-deck slide deck to put in front of them that goes over the operating plan, the pipeline of business. I mean, that organizational structure that the VC firms create on the coasts, we've got to create that here because we need to, everybody's time is valuable, and we need a very efficient way to get our story straight, both on the asking for money and on the evaluating the opportunity side. And we're getting better. It's messy, it's tough, it's disorganized. You just got to have the meetings and make it happen, and then we're so much better than we were 5 years ago. But we're not good enough. We got to be a lot better 5 years from now. But there's no silver bullet for that. There's no magic wand. You just got to put them in a room, make them talk, make them say what they like and what they don't like. Learn from your groups that moved to Boston and Menlo Park why. It's really valuable. Learn why they made those moves, and then try to fix it in your own community is what we are doing. We haven't done it. We're doing it right now.
Well, I would just point out that Peter, who preceded Matt in this role, met with a lot of the local investors, and what he learned, I think, is that, yeah, we're investing, there's money here, but they don't necessarily want a lot of people to know that they are investing. They have their own way of getting access to potential deals, and they're comfortable with that, and I don't think they want to see a line outside their door yet. But as Matt said, we're trying to change that.
You mentioned early on a virtuous relationship between the arts and entrepreneurialism. Could you say a little bit more about how that works here, both at the university and out in the community?
Well, first of all, we have courses that students can take in entrepreneurism, and we have these venture challenges where we get students from a cross-section to work together. For example, in that same year that Shooter Brew came out, we had a group that included a business school, IT, Conservatory of Music and Dance. They developed this app that turned out to be the #1 app for yoga on iPhone. So you get them working together so they get the sense that, wow, we can take these things another place. So working together in teams, which is important, having courses that they can take either in class or online and the like, helps that initiative. Right?
I think I don't mean to, it always is kind of strange to me that it's not more easy to see the connection between arts and entrepreneurialism. I mean, to me, from my perspective, there's just such a natural synergy. I wouldn't live here if we didn't have a good arts community.
Right.
I'd go somewhere else. My wife would make me go somewhere else because she loves ballet. I mean, the Kauffman Center for Performing Arts is such a huge thing for my wife to want to stay here. And I'm going to go, if my wife doesn't want to stay here, I'm not staying here. First Fridays, and you guys probably do the same thing. There's those cultures are the same in many ways. A lot of entrepreneurs don't look at money in the same way other business people look at money. They're just a tool to get their idea to the market. They want a life experience. They want the culture and the life experience they want to live in. That's the critical piece as we move forward. I assume I could maybe start a business and make money anywhere. So I want to choose a community that gives me the lifestyle I want to live in. And I want arts. I want my kids growing up around arts. And so those are kind of, to me, there's a natural fit there that the entrepreneurial ecosystem anywhere will understand immediately.
Brookings Institute finished a study here recently about growth in various sectors in the Kansas City region, and said that the arts would grow at double digits between now and at a double-digit rate between now and 2025.
Eli.
Leo, you started off by mentioning that. Hello, there we are. Sorry about that. Leo, you started off by mentioning that entrepreneurial characteristics don't necessarily have to be within the startup environment. You can have a mid-level manager that's innovative.
Right.
So Matt, how does your community identify, incorporate, and activate those people? And it's okay to say that you don't. You got to take the leap to pay the ante.
No, I think, so my COO would never start a business, ever. Doesn't have it in him, doesn't want to, doesn't like the risk. I would be homeless without him, right? Because I love ideas and creation, but I hate details. I loathe them. My eyes start to gloss over. I'm sure I am ADHD. I'm confident of it. But you got to have both parts. And so there are great, brilliant kids coming up through UMKC and our other universities that maybe don't have a risk aversion to betting it all on an idea, but they'll work with someone who does, and they provide a critical component that I can't have. And I think that's the sense that the collaboration between the universities is so important. I think that being able to know what I'm looking for in resources in my new startups often comes with somebody who maybe doesn't have the entrepreneurial spirit, but is organized and focused and can sit in a room and chart out a P&L for me and sit and explain it to me. I need those people. They want to be in an entrepreneurial company, but they don't want to start it. They don't want to take that risk piece. And so that's that collaboration piece that I think is so important.
What are the sources of startup capital that you all have in this part of the country for startups, angel investor type things?
Got pretty good angel groups here. Mid-America Angels are pretty good. We, interestingly enough, Nebraska Angels. There's some even regional pieces that come in here. We've got in that $0 to $100,000 is going to be family and friends money, largely. You get that 50 to 75. Now you're getting into some angel groups. And then you get above that, and you get into the $500,000 to the $3 million. We've got actually now Flyover Capital is a fund that's here. That's when you get syndication for us. We don't really have anybody doing $5 million deals, but they'll follow along. I really feel like in the last 5 years, we've had these entrepreneurs who have done well that have made a commitment to reinvest in Kansas City ideas. And that's been really important. But I would say at the angels, we've got some organized angel funds, and then we've got friends and family. And then, probably I would think like Lexington, at that angel level, your wealth advisors. You've got some wealth advisors,